Saudi Arabia is now becoming a powerhouse in the world of professional mixed martial arts and obviously professional boxing. In the recent times, they had the press conference for the Day of Reckoning, that big, huge card with all these heavyweight names and top-level names such as Bivol taking on Arthur, and the list goes on. Then you have Deontay Wilder taking on Joseph Parker, which on any given instances would have been really hard to make. Obviously not impossible to make Parker versus Wilder fight, but difficult in the circumstances that the present-day boxing business can really just create barriers and challenges along the way when it comes to trying to sign these guys. Then you have Anthony Joshua. He is taking on Otto Wallin, which is a great fight. Obviously not the fight that everybody wants to see. And then you have, who else do you have in that card? A whole bunch of names. Filip Hrgović is in that card. Who else? I believe they were trying to put that Chinese guy, Weili Zhang, but that just never happened. Somewhere down the line they will. And then you had Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk in their press conference, which showed you a little bit of the entertainment side of Tyson Fury, and of course stepping a little bit out of character to basically try and persuade Alexander Usyk to be scared of him, to be afraid of him, to be a little bit worried. And of course, Alexander Usyk is looking at this guy like, do you have any idea what my country is going through right now? We're going through war, bro. There's nothing you can do that can possibly somehow scare me. So that's the demeanor that both of these guys are having, and it's entertaining, and it's great. Not only that, it really solidifies the Saudis as a big player in the world of combat sports. And by the way, not just boxing, but obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the world of professional mixed martial arts, which is none other than the UFC. Now, let's face it, when we talk about the UFC, we are literally talking about a company that has a monopoly over everybody else in the entire game. However, the Saudis have so much money that they can literally create their own league and rival the UFC in the way that WCW has rivaled WWE back in the Monday Night Wars of the 90s wrestling days. They can absolutely do that, but will they? Well, the answer really relies upon what the UFC wants to do. And if you really want to put it down like that, understand this: the UFC would rather put themselves in a position where better to join them than rather try to compete against them and not having any luck in terms of, let's say, re-signing some top fighters. Now imagine if Conor McGregor decides tomorrow that, well, you know what, my contract is up, so I'm going to go sign with somebody else. Who can pay me more than the UFC? How about the Saudis? The Saudis would gladly bring him in. Just like what the PFL did with Shane Burgos and Derek Brunson, who, by the way, was supposed to fight Roman Dolezzi, the Georgian 185 fighter, in the latest Abu Dhabi card, which, by the way, never happened because, guess what? The contract terms with Derek Brunson and the UFC just never came about. The other league offered him a little bit more money. So you can imagine when these fighters hit that crossroad of their last fight in their contract, you better believe that, well, the Saudis can easily go in there and sneak right in and take it from them. But that's not what they're going to do, because the UFC has now this mentality of, if you can't beat them, join them, which is what I was trying to convey early on. They can't beat the Saudis. So what they're going to do is, you know what? They're already a big name. The Saudis can use them based on whatever it is that they want to do. They can throw some money in there, give a few guys the bonuses, give a few guys extra salaries on top of what they're already making. Maybe make the venue look even better than whatever venue you would see a normal UFC card in any given city, or create some sort of show around it. But obviously, you know that the UFC is very stiff in the way that they, let's say, market themselves. Not stiff, but more like plain. Meaning that You look at in 2005, what was their music in their opening pay-per-view from '05 till then on? It was Face the Pain, a heavy metal song, right? Very plain, doesn't really have a lot of extravagance to it. Whereas you look at other leagues, such as the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, all the other Premier League soccers, La Liga, whatever type of professional sports setting there is out there, they got all types of music like hip-hop, pop music to try and attract the mainstream crowd, whereas here with the UFC, they just had a heavy metal music, and that was it. And then with the entrance music, if you're not talking about Conor McGregor being walked out by Sinead O'Connor or Chad Mendes, our very own Chad Mendes here in Sacramento, who fought Conor McGregor and walked out to Aaron Lewis's Country Boy. By the way, done live, among other things. The Saudis can fulfill something like that, but at the same time, the UFC never really had the type of ethos to somehow make these extravagant shows. Rather, they would just like, hey, here's your entrance music, go out there to the cage and fight. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Obviously, Izzy has had a few grand entrances as well with some dance routines that he's done. He did an Undertaker walkout one time, which was great. He did some sort of Black Panther dance, hip-hop type of thing he had going on. Either way, the UFC does very minimal of that, and the majority of the time, it's really just, well, get out there with your own entrance music and fight, and that's it. Nothing extravagant, nothing more, nothing less. They don't even have guys walk out with their championship belts in the main event. But that's neither here or there. The point of the matter that I'm trying to make is that the Saudis would rather have their company with the UFC in terms of, let's say, just jumping in right away and asking the UFC, hey, what do you need? You need this money, you need this, you need that, you need these logistics done, no problem. So that's what we have going on. Now, in the boxing side, what are they trying to do with these boxing matches? You're probably wondering, why isn't Anthony Joshua fighting Deontay Wilder? And I'll tell you why. Reason being is because of the fact that they want to set it up. This is going to be a big fight. And as big as this fight will be, they're going to set it up later on for an even bigger show. So now you have Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua under the umbrella of the Saudis, correct? They make a good account of themselves against Otto Wallin and Deontay Wilder's opponent, Joseph Parker. They both do good, AJ and Deontay Wilder. Now they can create an even bigger matchup out of that. Oh, look at his performance that he did against Otto Wallin. Oh, look at Joseph Parker's performance against Deontay Wilder. Now we can set them up. Or you know what? Either of those guys can lose. One of those guys can lose. And somewhere in between, you create a new star in Otto Wallin or a redemption story for Joseph Parker, who, by the way, was a former world champion himself. So that is what the Saudis have going on and what they have set up. It's literally a long-term plan. Because if you're wondering, well, why can't they just shoot straight from the hip and have Deontay Wilder fight AJ, a fight that we've been wanting to see? Well, here's the thing. I think in the mindset of the Saudis, they're thinking to themselves, well, Wilder has already lost twice. AJ has lost multiple times already. One from Andy Ruiz, twice from Alexander Usyk. We got to build these guys up. We have to justify the money that we're going to give them later down the road, but also do it in a way that markets the interest in that matchup. And what better way to create interest in a matchup than have a matchup that Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua came off of a big knockout? If that happens, by the way. So you see, there's a long-term plan and strategy that they have going on. And then, of course, Makhmudov, that guy, heavyweight boxer, Chechnyan heavyweight boxer, I'm sure that the Saudis want to set that guy up with either of these guys. So somewhere down the line, they're creating this worldwide event of a tournament, a long-form tournament well, not really an official tournament, but more like some sort of competitive architectural plan that leads one guys to the other when one guy loses or one guy wins, or if one guy creates a good account of himself, he can get in there and somehow create these new matchups. That's what the Saudis have going on. Now, on the geopolitical side of things, well, you got to understand, just like anybody else in the world, they want to solidify and set themselves up in a position that is, quite frankly, going to be lucrative for their country. It's going to be a great look for their country, because what country doesn't do that? You're telling me that Paris doesn't want to host the Olympics? You're telling me that the United States doesn't want to host the World Cup? Of course they do. But the problem is, a lot of people are just going to have different political views of one country to another. Oh, human rights violation in Qatar. Oh, they don't allow women to drive in Saudi Arabia. All this high horse that they have going on. So in turn, what are they going to do? They're going to do their best just like anybody else. But unlike anybody else, they have the money that nobody else has. So don't forget to like and subscribe as we continue on with this week's whole entire fiasco of combat sports and everything else in between. Inshallah. Like and subscribe. Watch this whole thing, because you will love it.